Welcome to the final episode of our three-part series with Mihai Faur, CIO at UiPath, co-hosted by Mark Darbyshire. We'll start with a quick recap of where we left off, and then move straight into how agentic automation is actually running core enterprise processes today. Let's get into it.
I see customers that have automation, very easy to build agentic automation, other customers that don't have anything, and we're still waiting for that promise that will come. I don't know what will happen with the AGI and how that will be done from an enterprise level. I know there are risks, there are processes, I know there are specific business requirements, business logic. I know there is a tech stack. Putting all of this together, what's the best technology to use? Gen AI cannot do it, for sure. And the ROI promise is not there. Everyone is talking about this.
Thanks a lot for mentioning this example of UiPath. Just because I'm in go-to-market, we piggyback on that all the time, just sharing with customers how we grew from 150 million to more than 1.5 billion. And also, you didn't know that, but I was a part of a development team who implemented some parts of the Salesforce and NetSuite integration. And I just remember talking to people who were taking data from spreadsheets, putting it to different systems and thanking us for automating that. That was so powerful because I saw people are happy that we are automating the mundane and repetitive tasks. I'm sure that Mark has some questions. Over to you.
Mihai, one of the things, everyone on any call, any podcast these days, they're always going to talk about AI, and people will talk about APIs, and they'll talk about, workflow in the broadest sense, whether it's, unattended or attended. And thank you. I think you've teased out a lot of the realities of that. Yeah. One thing that hasn't come up today, and I don't know if it's relevant, so I'm hoping this is a long answer from you, not a short one, is the role of documents and document processing. I see with a lot of, should we say, transformation projects, that there's a lot of documents at the beginning, shall we call them the business case, and understanding of the as-is environment. And there's also a lot of documents at the end. And I'm really interested in your view as to how important, valuable, and relevant document processing is as well, or document understanding, in some of the things that we've talked about today.
Yeah, I would say even if you don't do like automation or agentic automation, and you don't run a center of excellence or AI team to do all of this, even if you do a simple ERP implementation, you would probably spend 50% of your entire project on understanding the processes. I see, and I think it's not specific to UiPath, that, processes are not documented. And it's really difficult to think about how to document all of this unless someone is taught to collect all this data, have them properly, and then maintain them, because processes are changing. And processes are changing if, there's a new technology coming, if someone is deciding to do things in a different way, if there's the policy coming, if the company is growing, maintaining process description is critical. I think if one company will have all of this and will decide to automate, the process of automation will be reduced by 40%. Usually, most of the information sits with business, because business are doing those activities. In the end, what's a process rather than a series of activities or tasks, which sits with certain people. And people are changing. They're leaving, some others are coming, and even in certain folks, they are doing things differently. So I think process description becomes really, really critical. And one of the topics that we had was always, are we aligned on the process? As is process. And then are we aligned on the to be? I think if we get to the point where someone is aligned on as is, there's a quick turnaround on the to be process. I think the shift is faster. And then of course, there comes the design, and there comes the development, and there comes the testing. And then I think this will be the last stages. I am not that worried, and I was not worried even in the SAP times, or even prior to that in the automation, about the development and the testing. I was worried about documenting, and where we spend a lot of time. Now, I know we have a process mining technology. I know there are others that have process mining technologies. These technologies are working up to a certain point, but there's still a lot of time spent by business analysts and business to really define as is the business requirements and then the to be. We are even thinking to automate this space and how we can automate. And there are certain technologies coming out there where, you can record what you're talking, and then, the agent will be able to understand and transcript the process. I know those things will come. I know that it will just speed up this process of, defining what's the process in the end. And it's very complex because it's not just a simple verbiage that you put on a word, but there's also like, what is the system that is giving the data? What is the system that is receiving the data? What happens with the human in the system or outside of the system? What are the technical details? What are the tables? Where do we read the data from? Where do we write the data to? So it's very complex, and it might sound easy in theory, but in practice is not straightforward. So I think focusing on getting this and really understanding this is a bottleneck, because I can call it a bottleneck, and tackle this one, I think it's crucial when you build up your team to develop automation. You really need to take this very seriously. I don't have at this moment, and I don't know if, on the next 6 months, we're going to have a technology that just deploy it to understand whatever you're doing. Because, you have to understand what the humans are doing on the computers, but also what happens in the system and how the data is manipulating to make sense of the variance of the process. Now, I don't want to get into the technical details of how to build one product, but going back to what you say, process description, process identification, and process design are critical activities. We should not treat them easily. I don't know if I answered your question, or was more like I think from my side, I'm not happy with the way we do things, to be honest with you, because I think we are kind of, stalling, taking some of the time from the development, and it's reducing the speed. I've seen this with the customers as well. They all ask me, give us some examples of what processes we need to automate. Tell us, well, what are the low-hanging fruits? And I'm telling you, but you should know.
Yeah.
I don't know your processes. Maybe I understand your systems, and but I can only tell you what we did. So I see this coming from customers. So which means that even large customers or customers that are for a while in the market, they don't have this very well defined, clearly identified. But of course, there are others where the center of excellence or the AI team are building this automation. But of course, they are following the playbook, because there's a governance, there's a framework, and those customers have a lot of successes. I've seen customers with thousands of automation, which means it's possible. And I've seen large customers that do not have one automation, and that's impossible. To here, to be honest with you, it's from here to here. I mean, you have all type of companies.
Absolutely. It's so much about the company's culture as well. This document discussion reminded me of something that is also asked by our customers, which is around the challenge that almost every organization on the planet, no, not almost, every organization on the planet has incoming documents, whether it's emails or, just simple papers that they scan, and they try to get information out of that. Now, that could be a structured or completely unstructured document, like a contract. In your SAP transformation journey, did you use any benefits of this, platforms that can help you extract information out of those documents? And how does it work?
So we have the structured documents, which are usually template, the accounts payable invoices. That's pretty standard. So, and we use document understanding and IXP for this, for our accounts payable vendor processing. And this works very well. But we also had, as I said before, we created the revenue dashboard that it's pre-populated by agents reading customer contracts. And that's not structured text, but it's natural language. And I think the agents are doing a terrific job. And it's pre-populating a revenue dashboard directly into SAP, and it's helping the revenue recognition team, level 1, to then understand what's standard versus no standard, and, make the right decision. As I said, the threshold is customers with high risk, where we give special attention. And of course, the humans are there to decide. But whereas the automation, driving at least extracting of data from these customers based on certain, system prompts. Like you are an agent and you have to give me everything from this contract regarding termination for convenience. And it's doing it very well. And I think it's kind of speeding up this process, which was done before by the humans. So yeah, I think data extraction models, whether those are like simply you build an agent and the agent is using an open model to extract the data, or even train ones like document understanding and IXP for specific invoice templates, because you need high accuracy for those, will really work in a context where you have either, a machine learning model that is trained, like document understanding, or IXP, which is based on an agent and a set of memory and guardrails that is built in as well. Yeah, that's where we use it primarily. And of course, for bank statements, we are also doing it because bank statement it's also a document, and the data becomes text in tables that are used by the agent in the end. So yeah, we are using this. And we use it even before, not for the contract, not for the customer's contract, but for the invoice processing. We used the prior to the agentic builder.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for sharing that. There's so many useful examples that you shared on this podcast. I'm really glad you did that.
Thanks.
Mihai, we've been on this journey. We've been on this SAP journey. We've learned a lot. We've created a lot. Do you think we're in a position to now be able to either advise others on their journeys, or probably more aptly, do you think we can apply some of the technology and the learnings that we've got to other transformations? As you said yourself, people are undergoing an SAP transformation, but it could be an Oracle ERP transformation, or it could be a Salesforce CRM transformation. Do you think now that actually, because of what we've done with automation, with agents, we're in a position to help people accelerate those transformations irrespective of the underlying applications?
Yeah, I mean, when we are talking to customers, we are talking about our stories, and we can prove with the use cases that we build. There's also Deloitte that can back up the story, and Deloitte is, I think, number 1 or number 2 in the world in terms of SAP software integrators. And I think through talking to many customers, we also have, center of excellence or UiPath as an automation. Maybe they never thought about using it into whether they are in a greenfield. I mean, they are migrating from another ERP to SAP, or they are in a brownfield, migrating from on-prem to SAP. I was talking to many customers, and they sound to be very interested in what we're doing, and they wanted to hear more into the details. So then, besides the conferences and all the events to which we participate, we had one-on-ones with our customers. Deloitte as well, they came with their Ascend methodology, and the Ascend methodology of running an SAP implementation. We're going to bring UiPath as the main technology to speed up this process. Together in this project, we created an automation playbook, which forms, I think, principles of how to look at a RISE story. RISE meaning a RISE object, meaning reports, interfaces, forms, enhancement workflows, which is usually where you have gaps when you do an SAP implementation. So they call this A RISE service because they put an A before from automation. They know how to look at these gaps now, and also there's an automation playbook listing all the automations that we built, and they're going to enrich this with further automations that we're going to develop together with the customers or with partners of customers when they run SAP implementation of those customers. So yeah, I think there's interest there. I don't think it's needed to talk about it too much. It should be, obviously, when you run an IT department, that as a CIO, because the CIO usually owns the SAP, they should actually think about how can I do things differently? Why don't I have to go and hire ABAP developers? And even when they implement SAP, SAP is coming with the BTP, which is their business technology platform, which is very similar to UiPath, but of course purely specific for SAP. And if you live in an SAP plus non-SAP environment or tech stack, then you kind of well, if I cannot use BTP, what other technology can I use? And I think UiPath should be there. Our tech stack was not entirely SAP, so we had other systems like Salesforce and Workday. It makes sense. If someone is fully SAP shop, and they can use BTP, but the scale and, of course, the focus of our product teams is different than SAP, which is focusing on ERP. I think the CIO should know about already by now by using UiPath or other automation technology to run their ERP projects. We try to tell our stories to customers, to partners, and I think I see success in it, but it takes a lot of time.
Thank you for that.
That brings us to the end of this 3-part series with Mihai Faur. A big thank you to Mihai for the openness and depth of insight, and to Mark Darbyshire for co-hosting and challenging the thinking along the way. And thank you to everyone listening, especially if you followed the full series. If this conversation sparked ideas, questions, or even disagreements, we genuinely love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, reach out, or drop your questions. Let's keep the discussion going. I'm Nick Kabanov. Thanks for listening.